Bathroom.
So
He,
decided.
no,
Way.
he,
Would.
eat
The.
desserts.
Period. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. So
Then
he.
saw
A.
ant.
And.
Thought,
That.
what
Would.
happened?
Who are the world's most interesting people? And what fascinating, groundbreaking, incredible things can they teach us? In this new series, I leave our Science of People lab to interview my favorite authors, experts, and celebrities for them to share their best people hacks, social skills, and stories. And let me tell you, they have some juicy tips. This is a new series I'm calling The World's Most Interesting People.
Hello, YouTube friends. I am so excited today to have Judi Holler on the show. Judi is a professionally trained improviser and alumni of the famous Second Cities Conservatory in Chicago. She uses her training every single day to embrace fear, manage self-doubt, I need that, and get more comfortable being uncomfortable. Judi's book, Fear is My Homeboy, best title ever, became an instant Amazon bestseller. Mel Robbins even endorsed her book, calling it relatable, relevant, and most importantly, actionable. So today we are going to be answering questions about fear, self-doubt, confidence, and we are also going to make it super actionable. Welcome, Judi.
Awesome. Mic drop on that introduction. Nice job. And it's an honor to be here with you. So thanks for having me.
So I am so excited to have you, and I'm going to just dive into all of our juicy, uncomfortable questions. And by the way, everyone who's watching, we're going to play 2 improv games later.
I know.
I'm excited.
It's so good.
I'm comfortable being uncomfortable with that, but we're not going to do it yet. I was like, we got to warm up with a couple of questions. So first, I got to ask you, I love how you conquer fear. You talk about fear in a very different way than other authors. So I've read a lot of books about fear. Obviously, it's something I think about a lot, but you talk about it very differently. So I wanted to just ask first, what is your greatest fear, and have you conquered it?
Ooh, okay. This is a juicy question, and I love that we're starting here. So let's break this down into 2 little parts here. Let's first talk about conquering fear. So I don't really believe that we can ever conquer our fear. I think we're going to have different fears in our lives. There's generational fears, based on how old you are. 20-year-olds are going to fear things very differently than a 40-year-old is going to fear. And men and women, we process, internalize, and manage fear very differently. So while I don't think we will ever be able to conquer our fear, I do believe we can work with it. I believe we can dance with it. And I believe it's our job to show fear who the boss is. And in the Fear is My Homeboy community, we call ourselves fear bosses. This means that we're in charge, right? We call the shots on our day, on our life, on how we move through and with fear, not the other way around. Because here's the deal. When you really have a goal of managing fear versus conquering fear, because we'll rant on the word fearless in just a little bit.
Sure.
When you have a goal of managing fear, you will become more captivating. Because when you manage your fear, you will be more captivating. You will be more innovative. You will be more able to be naturally outgoing. You'll be more joyful, and you'll start connecting in really powerful and profitable ways when you manage your fear. When you don't, you will stay stuck. You will remain crazy busy. You will end up with regret. You will miss opportunities every single time to level up and share your gifts with the world. So we're trying to avoiding fear. What we're trying to do is figure out how to embrace it, dance with it, work with it. And when we do this, we can really open incredible doors in our lives. So I'll pause there for a minute because that was a lot. But the goal is not to conquer fear. It's to figure out how to work with it and to fear less instead of chasing this unrealistic notion of fearless.
I like that a lot, because I think that fearless is sort of like chasing perfection, right? Right. Like perfection is something that we're like, I want, the perfect body language, or I want the perfect business, or I want the perfect relationship, but perfect doesn't really exist. And I kind of agree with you that I think that fearless doesn't really exist, because if you live a life without fear, it means you're not challenging yourself.
Right. And if you really think about it, Okay, if you were fearless, you would never pay your taxes. You would never go to a doctor. You would walk out of traffic on purpose. You would eat poisonous foods. And in the book, Big Magic, I write about this in my book by Elizabeth Gilbert,
Yes.
All Hail Big Magic. She made this joke about fearless that really struck a chord with me. She said, think about it. Listen, the only fearless people I know are like 5-year-olds and sociopaths. And do you want to be a 5-year-old right now or a sociopath? Like, we all have fear. It's who's willing to work with it? Who's ready to dance, right? Who's ready to look it in the face and say, hi, I see you, but what are you here to teach me today? And maybe you're here to keep me safe out of a really dangerous situation, but are you here to like wake me up to what's really going on? Because I believe like nerves before coming on with you, right? This feeling we feel when we step out onto a stage, when we start something new, when we begin a coaching practice, when we quit our job, when we do anything new in our lives, that feeling of discomfort, that feeling of sweat and shakiness, and that is life. That is, hello, I am very much alive. And thank you, fear, for reminding me about that. And now what am I going to go do with that feeling? So we don't conquer fear, we work with it. And I would say, Vanessa, to answer the second part of your question, my biggest fear, I'm a huge fraidy cat. If we're going to have a vulnerable moment, I'm afraid of everything. Like I'm afraid of doctors and spiders and elevators and tight and all kinds of things, right? So but I have
to embrace your fear. You have to.
Right, totally. So I'm afraid of all the things, right? And maybe, I always think, we teach what we know and we teach what we need. So I'm always working through fear. But I think my biggest fear, if I'm going to be honest with you and shoot you straight, is my fear of becoming irrelevant, right? Of like going out of business, of not remaining relevant in my work and in my craft and on stage and as a writer. So I love that I have that fear though. And we can lead into this, because I think it's that fear of worrying about becoming irrelevant or going out of business that literally keeps me moving and constantly pivoting and constantly taking a good, hard, long hook underneath the hood of my business, personally, and my business professionally. Because really, we're running two businesses. You're running your business, like you're running the business of Captivate, your books and all your stuff, and then you're running the business of Vanessa, because Vanessa's business doesn't work. Your kids, your spouse, your relationships, everything. So really shifting to think about yourself as the true CEO of you is a powerful way to think about how we manage our fear. And it gives us also the permission to do more brave things, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, like we've got to write ourselves that permission slip, right? To be able to bravely move forward into the spaces that really take care of who we are.
It's interesting because I think that a fear of being irrelevant. So when I think about fear, I like to think about what it leads to, right? And so when I'm talking to someone about fear and I'm asking them about their biggest fears, especially, thank you for getting deep with me, like beyond like the snakes and the spiders, because I'm afraid of them too. But like, the human fears is, I think, what does that lead to? So if someone has a fear of being irrelevant, that means that's going to give you your hustle. Like that fear of irrelevance is your fuel for your hustle, versus someone who has a fear of being alone. So the other one that I hear a lot, so I do a lot of interesting kind of fear workshops with people live, and I hear that a lot. I'm afraid of being alone. That will often drive them, or that fuels them to try to captivate their social energy. That's why they picked up Captivate, right? Like their fear of being alone is the reason they picked up my book. So I think that also sometimes we have to think about what are our biggest fears and how they can fuel different things. And so I think that that's interesting, because that's exactly kind of what I picked up from your book, is this beautiful, striving hustle, like this, like very excited, like you're excited about the hustle. You're not desperate for the hustle. And that's also part of Big Magic, right? Like the difference between being a hungry artist and a starving artist.
It's so true. Am I working? Like I love that on so many levels. And I'm always thinking like, am I working? Well, I really think I work harder on myself than I do in my business. And I work hard at my job, but none of it works if I don't work mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I think we can feel so guilty for doing things to really protect our time. For example, I just got an out of office from Tamsin Webster. I don't know if you know who Tamsin Webster is. You could search her up as the Red Thread. If you Googled the Red Thread, she's a very an idea whisperer, very famous in the TED world, a strategist, a speaker, all this stuff, really brilliant in marketing marketing, and she's helped me on a couple of my keynotes and coaches me from a performance standpoint. I just emailed her yesterday. I posted this on my Instagram stories. I was so blown away by it because, we're talking about having the courage to protect our business and do things differently, right? And I get her out of office responder, and it says, out of office, it's Monday, but it's Mind Day Monday. So she takes Mondays and calls it her Mind Day, and she sets her out of office. And I'm like, I have goosebumps telling you this because this is just a small example of something brave you can do to really get work done. We think we don't have time. So she calls them her Mind Days, and she goes, I'm not going to be as responsive today on email because today I'm spending time creating work for you. I'm going to be writing. I'm going to be thinking. I'm going to be walking around my neighborhood. I'm going to be researching. I'm going to be watching TED Talks, and I'm going to not be on social media, and I'm not going to be on email. And here's why, and here's how it's going to help all of my clients and whatever. It was just like beautiful email that really like was classy and brave and starting a movement. So anybody that reads that email is going to go, aha, well, what about me? And maybe I start with the first hour of my day, or maybe I start just protecting from 7 to 8 or until lunch. And I do freestyle Fridays. I do something very similar on Fridays. They're my day to sort of catch a vibe and let myself off the hook. I'm working, but I'm not like jam packing my schedule. So the point is, are we protecting that business? Because like once you realize email is everybody else's to-do list, you start to get real brave about how you run your business. And it's easy to get hijacked personally and professionally if we're just like going on that hamster wheel of like, go into work, check email, look at social, right? Like, so it requires a little courage, but when you think about yourself really as the business owner, who you are first before that other business and whatever is giving you your paycheck, it just kind of gives you that permission slip to really be bold and brave and, dance with your fear a little bit more confidently. So, yeah.
So I think you mentioned this phrase, which I love. I also think this could have been your book title too, Dancing with Fear. Like that's such like it's
so good.
Oh, it's so good. So good. Next book, your next book.
Next book, Vanessa. Write that down.
Yeah, I believe I'm writing it all down. I have like a big notepad. I'm like writing it all down. Don't worry, it's already written down. So I love this idea of dancing with fear, and it brings me perfectly into something else I wanted to ask you about, which is there is no greater example in the world of dancing with your fear than improv. So improv is that is the epitome of taking your fear and working with it. So I wanted to ask, what got you into improv in the beginning of your career? Because I know that you use a lot of improv now in your current career. What it was like at Second City, and also what is improv? since we're talking about it, give me the whole background.
I love it. So let me start. I'll do it in 2 parts. I'll kind of tell you how I got to the improv theater and then what improv is and more specifically like how people can use it and why everybody should do it. So I'll kind of break it down that way. But just like high level, I had a professional career in sales and marketing. I came up in the meetings industry. So the power of like face-to-face and live events. And we really believe in the meetings community that meetings do mean business. And when we meet, we change the world. So I built a really strong career in the hotel and hospitality side of the world. So I opened hotels. I worked in national sale books, big citywide conventions. So it's kind of weird. I'm still in the business because I'm a speaker. So I guess I'm still doing meetings for a living in a different capacity now. But my gosh, we lived for the live events. So I came up in like catering and banquets and all of the good stuff and sort of built a sales career. So that career led me to Chicago by way of a big promotion in the hospitality industry. I was working for a hotel company, got a promotion, moved from St. Louis to Chicago, and I knew I was around 30. I was 29, 30 at the time, and I knew when I got to Chicago, I said, I would love to study at Second City because I always sort of like loved presenting. I did speech meets. I was like the speech meet nerd in like grade school. And so I always wanted to sort of like really craft that performance skill. And as a salesperson and really as a human being, we're always selling, right? We're always performing and presenting. So I knew Second City, just taking basic improv would probably help me from a performance standpoint, connect more powerfully and profitably in my sales calls, presentations, thought leadership in my career. So I signed up for the basic classes that like anybody can go take. And a small caveat here, I tell this in my keynotes, and your trainers may appreciate this, but like not a lot of people know that the very first time I signed up for classes at Second City, I like never went. I paid the fee, the full fee, the non-refundable fee, walked all the way to the training facility from my apartment in Old Town, and I never went in. And I like lied when people asked me if I was lost or needed help. I was like, no, my bad, wrong day, wrong room. I was so in my head. I was 30 years old. And my biggest fear was that I was too old and that I was too late and that everybody was trying to be on Saturday Night Live and all these kids were going to make fun of me. And I tell the story in my keynote. I break it up into two components and I kind of come back to it. But the cool thing is I went, right? So it has a happy ending. I ended up re-signing up and going back to those classes. But like my favorite part of the story, and I show this photo in my keynotes, is when I walked into that classroom, I re-signed up. I was reading a lot of Brene Brown at the time. She's getting me courageous and I had a good group of friends. But when I opened the door to that classroom, I flashed the photo of my first ever improv ensemble. It almost like chokes me up even telling the story to this day because it was just such a powerful like reminder that we have to go scared. The first person I saw was a 59-year-old professor named Shelley at the University of Chicago. And then behind her was a 62-year-old sales guy named Frank. And they were both taking improv to figure out how to stay relevant. And here I was for like a year and a half waiting. And opening that door was like the first lesson I ever got from the improv theater. And it's this, that we have got to open the door. We have got to go scared. If you want to change your life, if you want to captivate, if you want to connect more powerfully and profitably, if you want to like chase your dreams in this really short life we have, you've got to go scared. And while this doesn't get easier, you will get stronger. Improv can help you with that. So I opened the door, I walked into the classroom, started the basic classes, changed my life. I ended up auditioning for the conservatory, which is like the professional program. I get in, I stay in, I have shows at that theater. I was probably at Second City for almost 7 years. I never did the main stage because I had a full-time job and, you know, was making a good salary and was trying to take it a different direction. But we had an improv ensemble called Control It Delete. And to this day, I still work closely with so many people at Second City. I hire them to do a lot of my creative work and I use improv, you know, all the time in my keynotes. So the moral of the story is I went back, took the classes, did it professionally, and it was a massive flashpoint for me. It really became my fear church. That's what I always called it because we went to the improv theater to work that discomfort muscle. And the more you do that, right, the better you get. So it led me into my work today, ultimately into a book called Fear is My Homeboy. And I just sort of started speaking for free anywhere I could. I'd leave my sales meetings and say, can I tell you what I'm learning in improv? And then it became a blog. And then I started getting asked to like get paid to go speak places. And 3 years ago, I quit my job. And now I speak full time. And it all began when I opened the door to that improv classroom, right? And while that wasn't easy, it really packed a powerful punch, and we'll break some of those lessons down today. So I'll pause there before I kind of like give you the like more formal definition of improv theater and like what it means. And then we can kind of maybe take a stab at a game, but I'll let you process that because that was a lot, but that's how I came to the theater.
So I think what's amazing about that is there's two things that I really want to highlight for people listening. And this is actually a very special YouTube video. So for everyone who's watching on YouTube, I made this video for you. Judi and I came on, but we also, you might see some other folks in here. Those are also some of our trainers. What I really want to share here is two things. One is you went, you felt too afraid, you left, but you came back. Like you came back. And I think that that's so important. I cannot tell you how many times I've tried something once in my career, it didn't work or failed miserably, and thank goodness I tried it again, right? So most of my successes were on second, third, fourth, fifth tries. Very, very few times have been the first thing. And I when I'm working with some of my students, sometimes I say, it's kind of like food. So remember the first time you ate? You probably don't because you were probably like 6 or 7 months old. The first time you ate food, it was super messy. I promise. It was super messy. It was all over your face. You didn't know how to use a spoon. You couldn't put it in your mouth. You had to rely on other people to help you. But you kept eating. You know, you kept eating. And now I can promise you, you are an expert in eating. You are exceptionally good at eating. I know that you can feed yourself. I know you're very good at using a fork. I know this about you. I can say with confidence that you are a pro at eating because that took years and years of practice. Same thing with trying different kinds of food. If we tried something once and we're like, nope, hate it. Usually we try it again a few years later. We're like, oh, my tastes have changed. Or you know what? People can make green beans better than the way my mom did, which was boiling them with no salt and no butter, right? They're way better with salt and butter. But I had to try them again to be able to know that. So it's the same thing, I think, with different kinds of things in your career, whether that's trying a new role or trying a new project or trying a new communication medium or trying to start a podcast or whatever it is. I think it takes a couple of tries. So there's that. And then also, of course, that you open the door and you saw something you didn't expect.
Yes. And isn't that like, okay, then that becomes a little addicting. You start to go, what's behind door number 2? And then what's behind door number 3? And you've got all these doors, like proverbial doors in life. And if you're willing to open the door, you might just be surprised at what you find. Now, it may not work. And like you said, when we first started eating, it was probably a horrific experience, right? And probably an experiment for the parent feeding the baby. But the moral of the story is, right?
Right.
Like that is, I mean, I think of the first time I like spoke on stage, you know, I mean, the only way you get any good running a business, doing these lives, like anything you get better at, it's like, you gotta have the guts to start, and it's okay to suck. We all start at 0. Like we all start at 0. And most of the time, none of us know what we're doing. We are just like trying to figure it out and be good human beings and help other people along the way. So like, give yourself some grace, but just keep showing up. And I can promise you, you will get braver. That is like a great segue into like improv and like what it really is. And maybe we play a game after this, but here's the like formal-ish definition of improv theater for everybody watching. It is essentially 2 or more people collaborating in environments of uncertainty with the common goal of creating a solution. And if you are listening to this, I mean, I'm sure you could raise your hand and give me like a heck yes on that, right? Like every one of us is collaborating every day. None of us have a script. We are all trying to create solutions for our customers. I mean, you are already improvising. I am telling people all the time, if you woke up and took a breath, if you have blood running through your veins, you are an improviser every day. You are collaborating, navigating change, and creating solutions. And I always tell my parents, I'm like, just getting a child out of the house with like pants on most days is a brilliant improv performance. Like, did you come here? Did you eat your food? Like teenagers, like you're improvising every day. If you have I have a couple teenagers in my world, my stepsons, and it's like, oh my God, it's an improv performance, right? So you don't have to be a professional improviser to be improvising every day. You're already doing it. So improv theater is a form of live theater, and we have no script, and the plot, the storyline, the characters, the dialogue, it is all made up on the fly as we go, and we get our inspiration from our audiences. And Second City, where I studied, is a very famous theater. There's a few, LA and Toronto has one as well, but Chicago's very famous. It was the first, and people travel from all over the world to study there. So alumni at Second City are people like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and Steve Carell and my hero Gilda Radner. And I mean, it's an honor to be in that theater and to study professionally, but just to even take a basic class there is a really big deal. So that's improv. No script, use inspiration, and we sort of we use our training to succeed on stage. And I can certainly play a game if you want to like warm up, an easy game, but I think your trainers will love it because this is a game you can use immediately. It's so easy to play, but it packs such a juicy punch. There are so many beautiful lessons living in this game. I do it for my keynote stages, and this is also a game you can use around the dinner table, like with your family. It can be used around the campfire, like at the lake this summer, like whatever you guys do. I mean, this is a game that can be used on so many levels. So maybe we start with one word, if you want to play with me, Vanessa.
I do. I'm ready. So I just pick any word, and then what happens?
Okay, so I'll break you through. I'll break it down. So here's how it's going to go. And by the way, have you ever improvised, done any improv ever at all?
I've taken a couple improv classes a couple years ago, and I loved it.
Okay. Amazing, amazing. So you've kind of been exposed to the improv phenomenon a little bit. So here's what we'll do. We're going to play a game called One Word at a Time. And all you and I are going to do, Vanessa, is we are just going to tell a story. The only catch is we have to tell that story one word at a time. Period. Now, we can use punctuation, like a period, a question mark, an exclamation as a word. That can be our word to like button up our sentence. And when we feel that the story has sort of hit the ending or the peak, I'll say the end. You won't have to worry about it. I'll say the end. The audience, rather, our trainers will give us like a round of applause in their offices, I'm sure, right? And then you and I will sort of break down what just happened in the game. Okay. And then I'll start us off with the first word, and we'll just sort of go from there. We do need a suggestion to get started, but since we don't have like, how do you want to
Actually, trainers, if you want to put suggestions in chat, yeah.
what is a story? And we'd love to get the title of a story that's never been written, like the YouTube live video that hit 20 million views, the cupcake that's never been eaten, the book that became an instant New York Times bestseller, like, you know, maybe that has happened to some people, but you know what I mean. Usually that takes
a lot of those sound like wishful thinking to me.
Right. The story that's never been written. Maybe you can tell what's on my mind right now.
The cupcake that's never been eaten.
The cupcake that is always eaten is my story, right?
Exactly. I kind of like the cupcake that was never eaten. I think that was like that's a pretty great title.
We can do that story if you want.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So trainers, audience, anyone watching this video, we are going to tell you an improvised story here. We're going to tell that story one word at a time. And the title of our story that Vanessa Van Edward and I are going to share is The Cupcake, the story of the cupcake that's never been eaten. I'll start us off. First word.
Okay.
Once.
Upon. Time.
There.
Was.
A.
Little.
Juicy.
Cupcake.
And.
A.
Very.
Big.
Cake.
Period.
So.
A.
Boy.
Came.
And.
Saw.
The.
Desserts.
And.
Smelled.
The.
Bathroom.
So.
He.
Decided.
No.
Way.
He.
Would.
Eat.
The.
Desserts.
Period. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. So
Then.
he.
Saw.
A.
Ant.
And.
Thought.
That.
What
Would.
happen
If.
I
Gave.
that
Cupcake.
to
The.
ant?
Question mark. So good. Bring us home.
He
Decided.
it
Needed.
to
Eat.
quickly.
Because.
The
And.
was
So.
hungry.
And.
Fat.
So.
He
Gave.
that
Cupcake.
to
The.
ant.
Exclamation point! And scene! Round of applause.
Oh, goodness
So, you know what? So there's a couple of things. Let's break this down. You did so great. And it was almost, you could tell you've done a little improv too. And, you know, I loved that there were a couple of moments where I felt like you might have had a word and you weren't sure if you should say the word.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Like, tell me, before we kind of give you some of the like juicy lessons in here, how did it feel having to use just one word? And how did it feel when you had those pauses? Like, oh, should I, you know, talk to me about how it felt playing that game. And then we'll break it down.
Well, the funny thing is, I think as a little bit like of a control freak, I wanted to control the words that you were going to say.
Totally.
So I wanted to give you my word plus your word. So I wanted to say, like, I wanted to have, you know, the ant be tipsy, but I couldn't get tipsy in there with the way that the words were. And so I unfortunately had an idea for where I wanted the story to go, but that just wasn't where the story was going.
Okay, I'm going to pause you there. That is like so good because that's what this game is designed to do. This game is designed to remind us that while we can't ever control the outcome, we can't control other people, places, or things. We can work really hard to be organized and put a plan together and work together and all that. We can't control the outcome most times, but we can always control our unique contribution. And improv isn't about like having the best thing. It's about the next thing. Are we moving the scene forward together? Right? And you did a beautiful job of that. It's like, I even had it. I was like, ooh, I hope she says glitter. Would it be great to put like some glitter on this cupcake? And then you did. And I was like, okay, pivot, right? But great. We're still moving forward. And there were a couple of times that it felt like we were in each other's heads.
Yeah.
Like we were literally dancing, in that scene together. And also, if you really think about it too, Vanessa, how many times are we doing this where we are light years ahead of where we should be? We're working with a client. We're talking to our spouse. Someone has just introduced themselves to us and we've already forgotten their name or what we're talking about because we're thinking of all the stuff we want them to go do for us. Or we're already on to like the next agenda item. This game is designed to help us trust that what we have is good enough. One word can be a really big deal. And that it's not about the best thing, it's about the next thing. And that while we can't control the story, we can control how we show up to it. So that's number one. What else helped you succeed in that game? Anything else bubble up for you?
Yeah, there was one other thing, which was the couple times I actually second guessed my word was only because I felt like I was playing safe. So instead of saying like, then the ant ate the cupcake, I was like, let's add a little bit of a juicier word. Like, let's pick a juicier word. Like, for example, I was hoping that you didn't expect me to say ant, right?
Yeah,
like,
I didn't. It was awesome.
Yeah. And so like, because originally I was like, I should say mom, but you kind of expect a boy and a mom. But ant, I was like, ant is totally weird. So the few times I can guess myself was because, and this happens to me a lot in real life, I hate being boring. I hate it. I hate having boring conversation. I hate social scripts. And so I felt like anytime something was kind of scripted, like people expected an answer, I wanted it to be a different answer.
So good. And that takes guts. We stick to the same social scripts we always use out of the fear of trying something new. So, I'm not kidding you. Did this 2 weeks ago on stage in front of 1,200 people, and we had unicorn. There was like unicorn. We were in like a castle. Our story was like a castle, something with a unicorn in a castle. And one of the women on stage, I brought 3 people up, and she literally said horny unicorn, and the whole place went crazy. Nobody expected it. My face goes bright red, and I'm like, okay, well, we're talking about horny unicorns, no mistakes, only gifts. Let's see how this is gonna roll. But talk about being unexpected, and like, so we just don't know what's gonna get thrown at us in life, and we have to have the courage to like take a deep breath, trust ourselves, and embrace the weirdness. And that's what improv is all about. Weird things are gonna happen. People might say something that makes you uncomfortable, but how are you controlling your reaction, right? That's the only thing you can do is control your reaction. There's one more thing I want to say about this game that I think packs a really powerful punch, maybe before we move on to some of your other questions, is this. There is so much power in one word. And I think a lot of times we word vomit, right? And over talk, and we want to overshare. We put so many slides in our keynotes and one more chapter in our book, when sometimes, breaking it down to the bare bones can actually be the greatest gift you give yourself, your audience, or anybody consuming your content or your work. And so there's this analogy in the improv theater. It's called bring a brick. So a lot of early improvisers, novice improvisers, they show up to their first day of improv or first couple of improv scenes, and they start their scene, they sort of like dump their bag of bricks on the stage. They just start like dumping it all out and saying like all the things and doing all the things because they're nervous and they don't trust themselves and they don't believe that what they have is good enough. So their nerves get in the way and they sort of dump their bag of bricks on the stage. And then all of the improvisers that are trying to play with them are trying to figure out what brick to pick up first, and we can't carry all the bricks, and it's a little overwhelming. We're starting to trip over the bricks. We've forgotten how many bricks have been put out in the first place. And wouldn't it be so much more fun and rewarding if we could sort of like build the improv house together, like one brick at a time? And so I share this to help you remember that what you focus on expands. So sometimes, like, breaking these big meaty goals and these dreams that we have and these big scary things that we want to accomplish down to sort of like bite-sized chunks is a really powerful improv theater hack. And we use games like one word to focus on one thing so that we can move the scene forward together. But also you can use this idea in your business and in life to manage fear by really getting laser focused and like bird by bird, brick by brick, right? One day, 1 hour, one step at a time, like moving the scenes forward in your life. We don't have to write the book tomorrow. Let's just, let's sit down and work on writing a sentence, and that could become a paragraph, which could become a chapter, which can become a book. So again, this idea of bringing a brick and really trusting that one word, can be enough is a great way to think about even managing fear,
I really like that, because it's another way of thinking about baby steps. Is you're just trying to move one word forward, or like we were just trying to move the scene forward. That's it. I wasn't trying to write the whole novel. I wasn't trying to write a children's book. Just move the scene forward. So I love that idea. And I think that the biggest question that I think maybe our viewers have right now, which is actually the last big topic I want to talk about for this video, is what if you want to move the scene forward, you really want to work with your fear and dance with it, but you have imposter syndrome. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? And by the way, for those who are listening, imposter syndrome is basically when you feel like you're an imposter or you're a fraud. So you show up to a big work meeting and you've been given this big presentation. You think, you know what, I don't deserve to be here. I'm not smart enough for this. A lot of the I'm not blank enough comes up with imposter syndrome. I'm not smart enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not pretty enough. All those enoughs come up here. So how, I know obviously we can't solve imposter syndrome in a video, but I think that we've already given a couple small steps. Is there any kind of words of wisdom or even a practical strategy you have for those enoughs, those moments of self-doubt?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's a couple of things. I love that we're touching on imposter syndrome. I write about it in my book. I actually even share, I think it was from...
Yeah, I loved how you talked about it in your book. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
That definition, so I can even give you the clip note because she summed it up so good. And this is a sentence I love about it too. This is from Harvard Business Review in an article about overcoming imposter syndrome that, oh, by the way, was written back in 2008. And that's how, think about that. I mean, this is something that I guess has been a conversation. It seems to be bubbling up a little bit more now, is bravery and courage, and managing self-doubt is becoming really a conversation on the forefront, through women like Brene Brown and Mel Robbins, and people just bringing a lot of these courageous conversations to the forefront. But in this article, it said that highly achieving, highly successful people often suffer the most. So imposter syndrome doesn't equate to low self-esteem or a lack of confidence. And I love that point. In fact, some researchers have linked it with perfectionism, especially among women and young academics. So it's this idea that, despite all of this evident success, you still feel I remember the first time I put improv games on a stage in a keynote. I had graduated from Second City. I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of improv shows. I'm a professionally trained improviser. And I was standing on that stage, nervous. I'm back at the tape just the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, it was so bad because I was so nervous. And so in my head, and I honestly felt like an imposter. I'm like, who am I to be up here? I don't deserve this, and they're all going to find me out. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not that great at improv. And so again, that's an example of how it may manifest. But here's what I love about this idea of imposter syndrome, and a way I think we can move through it. When imposter syndrome shows up and arrives in your life, it shows you that you have arrived, you have leveled up. Because I do believe it means you're becoming a version of yourself that you have never been before. And when you are a version of yourself you have never been before, it is okay to not know what you're doing because you've never done it before. So you're stepping in to this new you, this new power, this new bravery, right? This new brave, bold space in your life. Maybe it's scary, maybe it's exciting, maybe it's overwhelming, maybe it's exhilarating, but it's a new version of you. And when you're doing something new, you're going to feel out of sorts and out of place. And self-doubt is a natural, it is a natural benefit. Is beneficiary the right word? It is a natural side effect, I guess, of bossing up. And we've got to be okay with the fact that we're doing something we've never done. So one of the things I love to remember about moving through self-doubt, something practical that always sticks with me when I feel like an imposter, when I'm moving through extreme self-doubt, which, oh, by the way, happens a lot, all the time, right? I always like to remember this, that we get so worried about people judging us and not liking us and making fun of us or publicly failing or embarrassing ourselves. But the thing I like to remember is this: people are already talking about you. People are already judging you, and people are already making fun of you, probably. And I say that with love. So the question is, who are you living your life for? Who are you running your business for? You or everybody else? And so just knowing that life is short, self-doubt is a natural side effect of badassery, right? And imposter syndrome is something a lot of us struggle with, and knowing that imposter syndrome really is there when you have arrived into a space you've never been before, you sort of give yourself the grace to like let yourself off the hook and just move through it. But also remember, like, life is short, and it is up to you to run your business and live your life the way you want to do it, right? You've gotta really get balanced and brave by design, and that requires you to look at self-doubt as kind of an awakening. Like, okay, I'm feeling self-doubt. That means I'm in a space I've never been. I'm becoming a version of Judi I have never been. And welcome to the party, self-doubt. Welcome to my party. Welcome. You have just arrived because I've arrived. And that's the way I like to think about it. And it doesn't mean I'm not scared of it, but you get stronger, right? You get stronger. And I don't know.
So I've never heard that before, and I love it so much that when you feel imposter syndrome, it's evidence that you've just leveled up.
Celebrate, celebrate.
That means you get to like literally dance with it. I mean, literally you're like, yes, I feel imposter syndrome, which means I am trying something new and harder, and I'm hustling and I'm doing it right. So I've never heard that before, but I love that, like, because when I used to feel imposter syndrome, I kind of felt dread, like, oh, here it is again, right? But actually, no, it's like, okay, like
I am again. Here
yes,
I am again.
yes.
I arrived. And I think this is like a powerful aha moment. Like, and while this doesn't get easier, you get stronger. I like to take my audiences and anybody that consumes my content to Fear Boss Fitness. I believe, like, just like we go to the gym to get strong and lose weight or work our muscles, at Fear Boss Fitness, we go to the gym and we're picking up weight too, but the weight we're picking up is discomfort. And the more discomfort we pick up on the regular, the stronger we get. And this will never get easier. And scary things will never get less scary, but you will get stronger. And that's what the improv theater is designed to do. It's there to teach us that we've got to keep going, especially when things get hard and especially when things get uncomfortable. So.
Oh my gosh, there is no better way to end this video with that kind of call to action and mantra. So for everyone who's watching, I hope this has changed your perspective on fear to dance with it, that it's evidence of something good. As Judi so wonderfully mentioned, I think we're always improvising all the time. Whether you are actually on a theater or on a stage or not, we are always improvising, and maybe that's a good thing. So I hope for everyone listening, you can go out, you can dance with your fear. Judi, where can everyone find you? Where can they follow your work? Of course, we will link to your book and your website in the notes below, but where else can people find you?
Amazing. So grateful for that. So the best place to hang out with me, well, you can always go to my website, and I'm Judi with an I, Judi, Holler, Holler, like the verb, .com. That's my website, it's my home base, but I'm probably the most active on the Instagram. So I love Instagram. I'm at Judi Holler there. I do have a Facebook fan page, and as the business scales, I'm sure there'll be more things bubbling into, our connection wheelhouse. But Instagram, my website, of course, the book is on all the things. And I wanted to say to you, Vanessa, for anybody watching, I put together a little freebie. If they want access to the book, like try before you buy, or
Yes.
I put a bunch of downloadable freebies that I really love too. So if you just text the word brave to 474747, you'll get a little link, and you click that, give us your permission with your email, and then we will send you a bunch of downloadable freebies that you may enjoy, that really builds off the content in my work and really allows you to sort of test drive the book and the work for literally nothing other than just giving us your permission via email, and then it connects you to the community and the work a little bit. But that's something I thought I'd offer as well.
Ah, you are the best. Okay, so we have freebies, we have the book, we have Instagram. By the way, Judi is awesome on Instagram. If you want like constant confident reminders, I love following Instagram. Go follow her on all the things. Go buy her book. I'm gonna put all the info below. Judi, thank you so much for being on.
Such an honor. Thank you.
All right. So trainers, that will be the edit for YouTube. You're welcome to hop on video if you would like. And I want to open up to any trainer questions that you have for Judi if you would like. You're welcome to pop in a chat. And I thought, Judi, while people think about if they have any questions, they might not, we could do our last game. And by the way, Monica had suggested a really great title for a story. the grandmother's cookie jar that led to a hidden treasure. I guess cookies and cupcakes were just on our mind.
It was. Oh, something sweet. Yeah, no, I love that one. That was a good one.
So shall we play one last game? And if any trainers have questions, they can pop it into chat.
Yeah, so maybe while we're gaming, they can question. Okay. So here's another game I love to play, Vanessa. This is a little like a level up, but it's so fun. And it's all about being uncomfortable, okay?
Oh.
So, which is like life, right? So it's called the ABC game.
Okay.
And all we're going to do, like we work together. We both are, and we work at People School together. We're in your company and we work together, and we'll get inspiration in a minute, or maybe since we don't have an audience, I can kind of come up with something, but we're just going to have an improvised conversation, one sentence at a time between you and I.
Okay.
The catch is that sentence, each sentence is to start with the corresponding letter of the alphabet. So for example, if our suggestion is like vacation as something that two work colleagues may talk about, I'll do a quick little 4-sentence one-woman show. This is what it may be like.
Okay.
I'd start with A. I'd say, all right, I just booked a vacation to Cancun. You'd say, boy, I'm so excited. I'd say, come on, let's rent a cabana. You'd say, damn right. You get the point, right? Like A, C, D, all the way to Z. Now, here's the thing. When we get to X, Y, and Z, it's going to be super uncomfortable. So we'll just be making stuff up. Even if it rhymes, just roll with it. But trust yourself. And there are no rules, no mistakes, only gifts in the improv theater. And you and I both know the alphabet, but every time I play this game, it does not matter. Second city or not, we always lose our place on the alphabet. So usually the live audience keeps us on place, so you and I will just help each other out. If we usually have my live audience help us stay on track, like yell out the letter if we're lost. But we'll start with A, end with Z, one sentence at a time. I'll start the first sentence, just having a conversation. We just need some inspiration. Like, so besides talking about other people, like what is something, Vanessa, that work people normally talk about? Or like, what are you guys talking about at work? What's
food? It's funny, Candace just said, it's lunchtime where I am, getting quite hungry, all the cookie talk. So I'm also hungry. Let's talk about like lunch.
Lunch. I love it. Where are we going for lunch? Like always talking about like lunch. Especially when I went into an office, we were always talking about where we're going.
Always. Okay.
So that's just our inspiration. So don't let that like bind you. I will start with A and we'll be done with when our last sentence starts with Z. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll start us off with A. All right, we have got to check out the new Mexican joint that just opened next door.
But a sushi place opened across the street, I think that would be so much better.
Come on, you have the best ideas. Let's do sushi.
Donuts are also an option.
Everybody freaking loves donuts. It's another good idea.
Fat is a problem though, because donuts are so bad for you. So maybe we should consider something else.
God, you couldn't be more right. I have got to lose at least 10 pounds before this trip to Mexico.
Hell no, you don't.
I love you so much for saying that. You're my favorite person in this office.
Just stay at your weight. You look awesome. Just lift a couple weights.
You know what? I actually do think I've been looking pretty good lately. Thank you.
Love everything you do. So lunch, let's do it.
Man, you're speaking to me, girl. Let's go get that sushi.
Now, I think that we should start at sushi, have appetizers, and then move over to Mexican food.
Oh my God, that sounds so perfect.
Perfect. So let's take an Uber across the street because I'm in heels and I can't walk.
Quick, we got to find my iPhone. I have the Uber app all locked and loaded with my credit card there.
Remember, we could probably use our business credit card because I bet you the business will cover it.
Seriously, I love expense tabs.
Totally over-abuse that privilege all the time.
Understandably so. I mean, it is kind of sweet.
Very true, because it's a great way to do business development while we're eating at the same time.
What were you on W? Am I on W?
You're W.
Oh, W. Okay, good. Well, you know what? You're right. Let's just get ourselves to the sushi place because my stomach is growling. I know.
XOXO, Vanessa.
You have the best sign off in your work email. It's my favorite. XOXO.
Zoolander is really good at saying things too. So I'm going to do my blue steel and then we'll call it a day, which is
the end. And scene. That's great. Zoolander. I love that he came up. It's so good. That game is so juicy. It's a little harder because it gets, where am I on the letter? Usually what I do is the person that gives the suggestion, I ask what the first letter of their first name is. So we don't start with A. So sometimes we're starting with M and going all the way to M, or we're starting with O, or we're starting with X. I got a Xander one time. So it's adding like a little fear experiment on top of the scary game. But this game is really, the bottom line on this game is it reminds you there's no mistakes, only gifts. You can't let the slip up stop you. Like you're going to mess up and keep going. And then of course you have to show up when it gets uncomfortable. This game is super uncomfortable, but we have to keep going.
So I also, I want everyone who's watching, so everyone who's going to be watching this now is trainers, and these are different kinds of ways that we can be playful with material too. So you could absolutely have body language be the topic for this game, right? So you could be like, okay, like let's talk about what we know about body language, right? And like, you could just have people bring things up. You could say like, hey, we're doing a pitch clinic. Let's talk about pitching, right? Let's talk about Shark Tank. Let's do an ABC game for Shark Tank. So like, use these games. The reason why I asked you, I was like, let's just do 2 because I think it's a really good way to dive into different ways we can play with the material and get people loose. I will tell you, while playing this game, and I highly encourage you to play this with a couple of colleagues, you're in the present moment. Like, there's no worrying about the next thing. There's no thinking about something else. I have to listen to what Judi is saying so I can know what I'm saying next. I can't be thinking about what I'm going to do for Z.
Because the second you do, you've lost it. Like because that happened to me because I was like, what letter is she on? She's on B? Is she on B? Did she say B? And that's when I was like, oh wait, what letter am I on? And it was fine. No mistakes, only gifts. But again, it's the power of being in the moment, really listening and engaging. And so many times we aren't doing that. We're on our phones with our family members. We have our best friend at lunch with us and we're more worried about what's going on Instagram than just being there, right? And so this game is designed like, if you want to have important conversations, if you want to really captivate, blow someone's mind, put your phone down and show up and really listen. Yeah. And you will connect in powerful and profitable ways. People don't expect it. It's sad, but that's a great way to stand out by just like having the courage to really.
Yeah. So it's a very, very good mental exercise for me to be present, which is something I work on all the time. Ryan said, thanks, Judi and Vanessa. Great insights. Candace said, I have game nights for this weekend. What a great party game. So I think we got all of our questions answered, which is amazing. I feel like the hour went like that, which is just crazy. I can't believe we're already done. Judi, I'm going to thank you again so much for being on, sharing your insights. I hope we can work on more things together. I hope we're going to be in the same city at some point so we can do something in person, which would be so fun. And anyone who's watching, I hope you will go check out Judi's work, buy her book. It's a great kind of mantra to have on your desk. I feel like it's sort of, you're like our best friend that's cheering us on. It's like a book of pep talk, which I love.
Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you for that. And an honor to be with you guys and every trainer that's on this video and anybody who tunes in later, but certainly those of you who have been with us live, I am cheering you on. And if I could have one page in my book, if I could have one slide in my keynote, it would say, get uncomfortable every day on purpose and you will change your life.
Get uncomfortable every day on purpose. With that, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And Judi, I will email you very soon.
Awesome.
All right. Bye, everyone.